You've been told to hustle. To grind, to push, to sacrifice. To earn rest through exhaustion. To measure your worth by productivity. And so, you go to war with yourself. Every day becomes a battlefield between effort and peace. Between what you should do and what your soul quietly pleads for. You confuse discipline with punishment. And rest with failure. You chase success until it becomes survival. But discipline isn't war. It's alignment. It's the daily act of remembering what truly matters. And moving toward it. One honest, imperfect step at a time. Because real discipline isn't fueled by fear. It's guided by devotion. Not devotion to results. But devotion to becoming. You don't have to destroy yourself to build something meaningful. Effort doesn't have to hurt to count. You were never meant to live at war with your own body. Your own mind. Your own purpose. You were meant to live in rhythm. The space between effort and ease. We live in a world that worships momentum. If you stop moving, people ask, what's wrong? If you rest, they whisper, have you given up? But the truth is, constant motion isn't progress, it's panic. And stillness isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Because even nature doesn't bloom all year. The tide pulls back before it returns. The heart rests between beats. And yet somehow, you believe you're supposed to keep going, endlessly. You scroll through 1,000 lives online. All sprinting toward something. And you forget that pauses are part of every masterpiece. You're not falling behind, you're regenerating. You're not lazy, you're recalibrating. Rest isn't an interruption in your growth. It's part of it. You can't hear your purpose if you never stop to listen. You can't feel your joy if you never stop to breathe. Maybe success isn't about how much you can push, but how deeply you can pause without guilt. Because life was never meant to be an unbroken line. It's a rhythm. A dance between doing and being. Effort and ease. Burnout doesn't happen because you're weak. It happens because you forget why you began. You lose yourself in performance. In proving, achieving, managing, maintaining. You turn every dream into a deadline. Every passion into a pressure. And when you finally stop, you don't know who you are without the striving. You've built your identity around effort. So ease feels like emptiness. But that's the illusion. Ease isn't absence, it's awareness. It's what happens when you stop performing long enough to feel again. You were never meant to sprint through life, burning brighter just to fade faster. You were meant to sustain. To move in cycles, not chaos. When you mistake burnout for discipline, you confuse depletion with dedication. And that's when your purpose becomes pain. The truth is, effort isn't supposed to break you. It's supposed to build you. Gently, rhythmically, patiently. You don't need to escape the climb. You just need to learn how to breathe while you're in it. You think rest is what you do when you're done. When you've earned it. When your to-do list is empty. When everything's under control. But rest isn't a reward. It's a requirement. It's not what happens after you've lived. It's what allows you to keep living. Because rest doesn't just refill your energy. It realigns your perspective. It reminds you that you are more than your output. More than your metrics. More than the noise of achievement. Rest is where clarity grows. Where your creativity returns. Where your peace remembers your name. But rest isn't always sleep or stillness. Sometimes it's art. Sometimes it's laughter. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's saying no without explanation. Rest is rebellion in a world addicted to proving. It's your declaration that you are already enough. Even when you're not producing. Because you can't find peace if you keep postponing it. And you can't experience life if you keep waiting to deserve it. There's a moment, if you listen closely, when effort begins to feel different. It's no longer something you force. It's something you flow with. When you're aligned with purpose, effort feels like devotion. Work feels like worship. Discipline feels like love in motion. You stop chasing results and start moving from resonance. Your actions stop coming from fear of failure and start coming from a sense of service. This is harmony. Not the absence of struggle, but the presence of meaning. You still show up. You still push. You still grow. But now, your effort doesn't cost your peace. It feeds it. When you live like this, you realize that balance isn't stillness. It's movement without resistance. You find your rhythm. The one where you don't have to choose between progress and peace. Because they've finally learned to dance together. Ease isn't the opposite of effort. It's what effort becomes when trust enters the room. You stop trying to control every outcome. And instead, start participating in the process. You learn that not every plan needs a timeline. And not every pause means you're lost. Because life isn't linear. It's layered, looping, and alive. It unfolds at its own pace, and so must you. Trust is allowing your progress to breathe. It's knowing that momentum can exist even in stillness. It's believing that rest doesn't erase growth, it nourishes it. The universe doesn't rush, yet nothing is left undone. The seasons don't compete, yet everything blooms in time. And maybe that's the lesson. You don't have to rush your becoming. When you trust, you stop fighting with time. You stop demanding guarantees. You start seeing how beautifully everything unfolds. When you stop forcing it. Because effort gets you to the door. But trust is what lets you walk through it. At last, you find yourself in the middle. Not striving, not escaping. Just existing. You begin to understand that peace was never found at the extremes. It lived here. In the balance between doing and being. Between trying and allowing. Between fire and calm. This is the art of living. The space between effort and ease. It's where work becomes worship. Where rest becomes trust. Where every breath feels like both action and acceptance. You don't have to hustle forever. You don't have to retreat forever. You just have to learn how to listen. To the rhythm beneath your own heartbeat. Because when your effort feels like devotion. And your rest feels like trust. You stop chasing balance. And start living in harmony. And that's when you realize. You were never meant to choose between effort and peace. You were meant to live beautifully between them.